Standing room crowd, okay? I mean, okay. There's one.
And friends, at this time we are going to begin the services for Vera Brook. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask and encourage you to take a moment to turn it off or place it in the silent mode. And officiating today's services will be Cantor Stuart Figa from West Suburban Synagogue, Harzon. Let's try that.
The Jewish people respond to death with 3 words of blessing. In English, the words mean, praised is the judge of truth, Baruch Dayan HaEmet. We also say Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mivorach. Adonai has given and Adonai has taken. Praise is the name of Adonai. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Vera Brook's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. We begin actually with not quite 3,000 years ago, but about a century and a half ago, with a Yiddish song. I know that Vera would have appreciated this, as the last time I saw her was after a performance of Yiddish theater in Philadelphia that I was starring in. touring out of New York. So I think she would approve of this song that I've chosen, Oifen Pripetchik. Oifen Pripetchik is a scene in the old world at the fireplace of the rabbi teaching the children. At the fireplace, the flames are ablaze and the house is warm, and the rabbi teaches the little children the Hebrew letters, the Aleph Beis. Sit, children, and remember well what you are learning now. Recite and repeat these precious letters again and again. When you grow older, you will understand that these letters contain the tears of our people. And when you grow weary, you will find comfort in these letters. Oifen Pripetchik brennt a Feuer, und in Stieb is heiß, und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem alle weiß, und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem alle weiß. Zetje kinderlech, gedenksche Teiere, was ihr lernen du. Sag she noch amol und Tage noch amol, kommet's Aleph O. Sag she noch amol und Tage noch amol, kommet's Aleph O. Lernt Kinder mit groß Cheshek, azoi sog ich euch on, wer's wird gicher von euch kennen Ivre, der bekommt davon. Wer's wird gicher von euch kennen Ivre, der bekommt davon. Ihr werdet Kinder älter werden, wird ihr allein verstehen, wie viel in die Häusjes liegen Tränen und wie viel gewehen. Wie viel in die Häusjes liegen Tränen und wie viel gewehen. Zetje kinderlech, gedenksche Teiere, was ihr lernen du. Sag she noch amol und Tage noch amol, kommet's Aleph O. Sag she noch amol und Tage noch amol, kommet's Aleph O. Also from the old world, a song. Specifically, it's a Russian melody, which is appropriate for Vera because that was her beginning, born in Russia. I'll sing the song called Papirosen. A cold night, foggy and darkness everywhere. A boy stands sadly and looks around. Only a wall protects him from the rain. He holds a basket in his hand, and his eyes beg everyone silently. I don't have any strength left to walk the streets, hungry and ragged, wet from the rain. I schlep around from dawn. Nobody bothers to give me the time of day. Everyone laughs and makes fun of me. And what's he have in the basket? Cigarettes. Papirosen. Buy my cigarettes, he pleads. Dry ones, not wet from the rain. Good price, truly. Buy and have pity on me. Save me from hunger now. Buy my matches, wonderful ones, the best. And with that, you will uplift an orphan. My screaming and running are for naught. Nobody wants to buy from me. I will have to perish like a dog. A kalte Nacht, a nebeldicke Finster im Tim. Steht a Jingele vertreuert und kiekt sich herim. Von Regen schützt ihm nur a Wand, a Koschekel halt in Hand. In seine Augen beten jeden Stimm. Ich hab schon nicht kein Koech mehr, arem zu gehen in Gas. Hingerecken abgerissen von dem Regennass. Ich schlepper ihm sich wenn beginnen, keiner geht nicht sie verdienen. alle machen von mir Spaß. Kupitje, Käufsche, Papierossen, Trecken von Regen nicht vergossen. Käufsche billig Benemunes, Käuft not auf mir Rachmunes, Rate wird von Hinger mich hat sind. Kupitje, Käufsche, Schwebelach antiken, damit wird ihr Josamul der Quicken. Ihm sitzt mein Schreien in mein Läufen, keiner will bei mir nicht kaufen. Ausgehen will ich müssen, wie Wind. And now some Jewish wisdom from much longer ago. Psalm 144, Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, return, O mortal creatures. Adonai madam vatedaehu ben enosh vatechashvehu Adam level dama yamav ketzel over baboker yatzitz v'chalaf la'erev yemolel v'yaveh תשב אנוש הדקה ותאמר שובו שובו בני אדם וחוכמו ישכילו זאת יבינו לאחריתם כי לא במותו ייקח הכל לא ירד אחריו כבודו שמרתם ורא ישר כי אחרית לאיש שלום תודה אדוני נפש עבדיו ולא ישנו כל החוסים. And lastly, Psalm 23, Adonai Rohi. The Lord is my shepherd. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green shadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm. You are with me. Your staff and rod comfort me. Adonai Rohi lo echsar bino sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi v'yoshvev v'shovev yancheni b'maglet tzedek yancheni b'maglet tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech בגץ על מוות לא יירא כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני Adonai Rohi lo exar Adonai Rohi lo exar. It's appropriate to share words and memories of Vera at this time. Now going to invite the children to step forward and speak. First, Michael.
I'm so glad to see you, my friends and my family. I want to talk about how my mother gave me the gift of music. My mother was a music lover. She would go to concerts all by herself, and she wanted me and my siblings to have the gift of music. So I thank her. I thank you, Ma, for taking me for violin lessons when I was 6 years old, standing on Montrose and Kedzie. And I thank you for bringing a sheet of paper home to teach me the lines and the spaces, even though I wasn't all that willing, but you kept with it. I thank you, Ma, for sticking with me on the violin for 5 years, even getting a violin for my father so he could practice with me. And he did okay. I thank you, Ma, for then at one point riding down this Niles Center Road in downtown Skokie. I thank you for going to the, pointing to Skokie Music Center and saying, look, there's a sign that says guitar lessons. Would you like to do that? And I said, yeah, I would like to do that. And I did it, and I still play. I still play to this day. I thank you, Ma, for buying me my first guitar, for buying me a mandolin, so I could play some of your favorite songs. I thank you for introducing me to Russian music and Yiddish music. I love them to this day, and I thank you, Ma, for everything that you were to me.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I recently learned of a phrase while living in Bermuda for the last 6 months. It was the word homegoing. Bermudians would refer to funerals as homegoing. And although the homegoing is steeped in Christian and island traditions, the word homegoing has resonated with me since last week when my mother died. Because, as you all know, she was born in Russia. We grew up in Skokie. She lived in Chicago for her teenage years and her early adulthood. About 60 years in the Chicago area, and then to Pennsylvania and Delaware. But here we are today, bringing her home. Years ago, we decided to bring Vera here because my father is buried next to her over there. And we thought it was the right thing to do. She was only back here to Chicago one time in the early 80s when we left, since she left. And it just seemed right that she would be going home to Chicago for the rest of eternity. And with that, she can still play a role in our family to bring us back here to this magnificent city that we love so well. It really means so much to my brothers and I. Chicago is always in our hearts. You can't say the word Chicago without us saying we love Chicago. And I'm so happy my daughter Janine, my middle daughter Janine, with my 2 grandchildren, her husband Tom, were here with me in Chicago to see the great city that it is. And now Vera's here. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye to the world's most wonderful mother. We're glad you're here and able to go home. And while I have all your attention, I gave you all the instructions how to get to a little reception afterwards. If someone showed up, I think we're all here. Please join us.
If Vera were here, she would say, comb your hair, and she would probably say, you look tired, you need some sleep, and perk up. So I'll try and perk up, even though it's a sad occasion. Following on Anita's comments, we discussed Chicago, and Chicago felt right, because even though we all live in different places, we are, as they say, of Chicago. It's in our bones. I was just contemplating that Michael and Anita and I were last together at this spot. We've been here separately when my father died, and now we're here to bring my mother. And I want to thank her because our father left us fairly early. It's always too early, by the way. It doesn't matter when it is and how old you are. But he left us fairly early, and I want to thank you, Ma, for staying with us. Whoa. Staying with us for so long. It's really incredible. She really did want to hit 100 years old, and she was only 11 weeks short, you know. And but for other circumstances in the world, I think we would have had that. And I don't know about you, but come August 15th, I'm going to celebrate anyway for our mother. I just wanted to just make a couple of comments. People talked about that Vera was a very kind person. The word kind sometimes gets thrown around, but really she was the definition of this. In our obituary, we said unlimited kindness. And just wanted to give a couple of examples of the kind of person she was. We had a family friend, and the woman, her husband, died suddenly, tragically, not for natural causes, shall we say. And my parents left their lunch on the table and went down to where she lived in Westchester, that's west side here of Chicago, and stayed there. My mother stayed there for 2 weeks straight, and Vera had other things to do also. She had a life, but she dropped everything for her friend. And we lived in a neighborhood, and she befriended everybody. There were always somebody in a neighborhood who's a little kind of like off. Vera's the one who would befriend them. And even when they would bite back at her, she wouldn't get angry. She would just be hurt and wonder why, when she was so kind, that she would get this kind of reaction. But she really was a friend to everybody. She was a friend to all of our friends, people who heard about what happened last week, who had not seen Vera in half a century, were really felt a real loss. So they say you say goodbye here, but just like my father, I've thought about him every day since we laid him to rest. I will do the same. Thank you, Ma. We love you, Ma. And it was great being one of your children. And we continue to be her children, grandchildren, great children, friends, and everything else. So thank you all for being here.
Well, a different kind of Yiddish song now before we get close to the conclusion. We started with Oifem Pripachik, childhood, and Papyrosen, kind of preteen. But then there was romance in Vera's life too with Calvin. And there's a very well-known Yiddish song about the young bocher, the young boy who stands there and thinks, who should I take? Who should I ask? And I won't be ashamed. And I don't want to be ashamed. And he's playing the tumbala laika. He's playing the tumbala laika. Maidel, girl, I want to ask you, what can grow and grow without rain? What can burn without fire? What can long for something and cry without tears? And the smart girl answers, silly boy, why do you have to ask? A stone can grow without rain. Love can burn without fire. And a heart can long for without tears. Steht a Bocher, steht und tracht die ganze Nacht. Wem zu nehmen und nicht verschämen, wem zu nehmen und nicht verschämen. Tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala laika, spielbala laika, tumbala laika, freilich soll sein. Mädel, Mädel, ich will bei dir fragen, was kann wachsen und regen, was kann brennen und nicht aufhören, was kann bänken, weinen und quälen. You can sing with me. Tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala laika, spielbala laika, tumbala laika, freilich soll sein. And here's the smart girl. Narische Bocher, wo's darfst die fragen? A Stein kann wachsen und regen. Liebe kann brennen und nicht aufhören. A Herz kann bänken, weinen und trären. Tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala, tumbala, tumbala laika, tumbala laika, spielbala laika, tumbala laika, freilich soll es sein. Otazoy. Well, I'm going to read some biographical information about our dear Vera. She was born August 15th, 1921, passed away May 26, 2021. Born in Rostov-on-Don, Russia. Daughter of the late Leon and the late Tanya Fine, label and title. Sister of the late Beverly Singer, brother-in-law of Bernard Singer. Mother of Michael, Anita Brooke Dupre with James, Stephen with Melissa Deng, and the late Barbara. Grandmother of three, Nicole, from Andrew and Janine, Tom, Gia, Misha. Great-grandmother of six, Eva, Ellison, Anastasia, Octavia, Solel, and Adi. Nephews of Mark, with Stephanie, Singer, Mark Singer, and Richard Singer. Cousins of Reva Cohen, Manny Gale, and the late Alice Nassatir. Longtime companion of the late Alfred Butcher, and a friend over her lifetime of too many people to count. Vera immigrated to the United States with her parents at the age of 1, landing a short distance from here on the west side of Chicago. She grew up during the Great Depression, struggling along with her family to make ends meet, and grew into a vivacious young woman. She graduated from the venerable von Steuben High School in Chicago's Albany Park neighborhood. She soon met her future husband, Calvin, and they were married on August 17th, 1940. They later settled in that home we knew so well in Skokie, Illinois, across the street from Middleton Elementary School and around the block from Rand McNally, which brings us to Vera's work life. She worked for the USO during World War II. She worked with Calvin in his printing business and with her father in his lampshade frame business. Later, she was an outstanding customer service representative for the nearby Rand McNally Company, placing maps and globes in schools across the country. The Brook House became the hangout of choice for her children's friends, and I can personally attest to that. Steve reminded me that in those childhood years, I would just show up and ring the doorbell unannounced. And I probably wasn't the only one. Vera and Calvin accepted all their children's friends and became like second parents to some. The kids had holiday parties and band practices and jam sessions in the living room and in the basement. I remember spending hours with Steve in that basement, performing high-level experiments with his chemistry set. It was a place where friends were always coming and going, and they could be themselves in Vera's house. We affectionately named the Brook House Brook Boulevard. With a move to Philadelphia at nearly age 60, she found her calling and a new career in preschool education. She studied early childhood education at Community College in Philadelphia. She taught for 20 years, almost until age 80. She loved the little kids and they loved her back, remembering her decades later. Reading was a fundamental for Vera. As kids, she and Calvin regularly took Mike, Anita, and Steve to the Skokie Public Library. At preschool, her favorite activity was to read stories to the children so they would enjoy books too. Vera was a music lover, especially of the symphony. She did her best to bestow her love of music to her children and grandchildren. Sometimes she succeeded. Mike, as you know, became a phenomenal guitarist. Sometimes not so successful, like when her kids decided that a performance of the Chicago Metropolitan Opera was a good place to have a tic-tac-toe game on the floor. But that did not deter her. She enjoyed a Sunday at the symphony or a violin or piano performance. And when jazz great Louis Armstrong, Satchmo himself, played at Old Orchard in Skokie, the local outdoor shopping mall, Vera made sure the Brooks were there. Vera was a loyal friend. She had friends spanning 8 decades. Most of all, Vera was the gentlest and kindest person you could ever know. And now Vera has come to the end of her journey, her blessed, long journey. And we lower her into the ground now before we have our final prayers. Adonai Ose Shamayim Varetz Alitein Lamod Raglecha Al Yanu Meshomrecha In Eloyanu Melo Yeshan Shomer Yisrael. A song of ascent, I lift my eyes to the hills. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heavens and the earth. God will not allow you to stumble. Your guardian will not slumber. Indeed, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. What I have here is earth from the Holy Land, from Jerusalem. And to pour this holy earth on here for our service. Now we'll recite the special prayer for the departed, the El Malei Rachamim, compassionate God. And we rise in honor of Vera Brook. And we'll mention her name in this prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Amtsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, V'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim. את נשמת וירה בת ליבו שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה ענה בעל הרחמים הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Vera Brook, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bound of life, and may she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. And now we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which is in your pamphlet if you need to look at it. I'll read. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Bialma divra kirutei biamlich malchutei b'chayei chon u'byomei chon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael b'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mivorach le'olam l'olmei almaya יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו Amen. Please be seated. Okay. We will now put earth over the grave, and please line up. And it's customary to shovel three scoops, 3 shovels full, and put the shovel back down so that each person is doing this on their own avail.
We'll begin with the immediate family. When you come to the grave, if you have a flower, you can cast that into the grave and then participate with the shovel. Thank you.
Be careful.
invite anyone else who'd like to come forward. Again, you can come forward on the near side or the far side to participate in the burial. Anyone else that would like to come forward and cast a flower or some earth into the grave, you can do so at this time. Friends, this does conclude the services here at the cemetery. In just a few moments, the cemetery staff will complete the task of filling the grave. They'll be using the tractor, the machinery. Again, if you wish to stay here to witness that, you certainly may do so. If not, we thank you for your attendance, your participation. For those of you who have been joining us online, thank you for your support of the family during this time. And we wish the rest of the family a Shabbat Shalom.
This concludes the Zoom portion of the funeral. We thank you for joining us.